It is 4:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. So nice to see everybody's faces. And I want to acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, Tla-o-qui-aht. And a notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. And if there are no objections to adopting the agenda as presented, I'll move adoption. Seeing no objections, motion is carried. And adoption of minutes. If there are no objections, I will move the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held May 25th, 2021.
Excuse me, Mayor Law, may we please have a first and seconder for those motions?
We're actually doing the unanimous consent.
Okay, proceed.
So this is Robert's Rules of Order, unanimous consent for motions that are really just routine in nature and don't really need a discussion unless people ask for one. So we're going to carry on with that. So without further ado, for that, the minutes of the regular council meeting held May 25th, 2021, seeing no objections, that motion is carried. And we'll do the same thing with the, if there are no objections, I'll move adoption of the minutes of the special committee of the whole regional meeting held May 27th, 2021. Seeing no objection, motion is carried. We have public comment on agenda items, and I think that Ms. Best, we are expecting one participant to comment on one of the items.
Thank you, Mayor Law. We have one sign up from an individual already, and the other sign up has not appeared yet. So I will lead with Mr. Adam Smallwood. I will allow him to talk right now. And Mayor Law, I do believe you have some instructions for our speakers.
Sure. Mr. Smallwood, welcome to the council meeting. Please, when you start, please state your name and address for the public record. And you get 2 minutes to speak. So I'm going to put you on a timer, and I'll give you, if you go close to 2 minutes, I'll just give you a little warning. So without further ado, go ahead, Mr. Smallwood. Are you on? Mr. Smallwood is Mr. Smallwood, are you able to, if you're talking and we can't hear you, then click raise hand. Ah, okay. Are you off mute? Okay, if you're not able to, if you're not on mute and you're not able to speak, then usually that means a refresh. Is that right, Ms. Best?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Law. Or if there's headphones that are plugged in or some device used for audio, usually unplugging that may help as well. But
super.
We can circle back to Mr. Smallwood if he has a moment to.
Yeah, so sure. Mr. Smallwood, why don't you try logging off and logging back in, and I will carry on with the mayor's report. And if council is amenable, then I will move that we move public comment for Mr. Smallwood to after the mayor's report. Seeing no objections, okay, that motion is carried. So there you go, try that, Mr. Smallwood, and we'll try you back. I'll turn off my 2 minutes because 2-minute timer. Super, and I assume, Ms. Best, that nobody else has signed up.
You are correct, thank you.
Okay, super. Moving on to the mayor's report. I was able to join the regional restart meeting with Minister Osborne and our medical health officers, and I am very pleased to let everybody know that it's going very well. And I do have something to say about, sometimes on the island we feel very lucky with our COVID journey. And but I do think that has been anything but luck. I think talking to the medical health officers, both in meetings and in privately, they have been working 7 days a week, sometimes up to 16 hours a day, and have come up with amazingly innovative ways of dealing with COVID, and certainly the community health approach that Island Health has taken that we have benefited greatly from here in Tofino is a direct result of that hard work and innovation. And so thank you very much to our medical health officer, Mike Benusic, and our very own medical health officer resident, Dr. Charmaine End. So very well done. The ICE-T, so the Island Coastal Economic Trust has put out a very interesting grant, and it is for $50,000 up to 100% for capital costs. And that is for new, innovative, concept-driven small capital initiatives that drive new vitality to downtown Main Street or business districts. Projects should foster increased visitor attraction, resident engagement, increased community activity. So that's very exciting. So I'll put that out to the community, and perhaps we have some community members, organizations that can take advantage of that. Of course, this week I did attend the memorial ceremony at the Tinwis, and that was for the to remember the 215 children found at the site of the old Kamloops residential school. Circle back to that in a little bit, but I also met with Chief Richard George of Hackett, and we discussed a very exciting and powerful movement in Hackett, and that is a march against violence. And there are many people in Hackett, women and men, and Richard George is a vital part of that, and they are marching against violence, and that does dovetail very well into initiatives in our own community to deal with violence and sexualized violence. And I look forward to seeing more movement on that in the coming months. We have some volunteer recognition awards. And first, before we go to the volunteer recognition awards, BC Cultural Ambassadors have been chosen, and a Tofino resident is one of them. And Vera Panic, also known as, Vera Danik, also known as Panic Danik, has been chosen. So congratulations, Vera, on that choice. And let's go to volunteer recognitions. James Page has won a volunteer award, District of Tofino. And I'm going to read a nomination form from our very own Lindsay. James is a volunteer with the Coastal Animal Rescue and Education Network. He has been volunteering for about 7 years and takes on a world of different tasks. As a mechanic, he volunteers his own time outside of work hours to maintain the vehicle we use to access animals during emergency calls and transport animals out of town when necessary. He fosters cats regularly and for long amounts of time when socializing is needed. He has also been integral in building the West Coast First Animal Shelter. James has been out at the building site, rain or shine, digging ditches, chopping wood, clearing brush, and doing just about everything else that no one wants to do or enjoys doing, all while getting eaten by mosquitoes. So congratulations, James. You guys gotta like unmute and give James a clap or something. I know. Silent, there you go, silent clap. And
James.
that's right. And another outstanding volunteer in our community, everybody knows Dwayne Bell. Congratulations, Dwayne Bell. Dwayne is a business leader and tireless volunteer in Tofino. Mr. Bell has been volunteering in the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department for over 10 years. He is not, if he's not putting out fires or on a first responder call, he is organizing the appreciation events and gifts for the women and men of the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department. He goes out of his way to ensure all members are appreciated every year. Dwayne has also volunteered for many Tofino organizations. He was a board member and the chair of Tourism Tofino for several years, a board member of the Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce, and was a volunteer for the Tofino Rec Commission. He sat on the Tofino Housing Corporation and other DOT committees. Dwayne shows up at the pancake breakfasts. He dresses up in the Easter Bunny costume for kids. He raises money for Movember. He plans the Tofino Volunteer Fire Department Christmas appreciation gifts, and he has sat through hundreds of board meetings. Fantastic work, Dwayne. We love you. Yay.
Congratulations.
Hey, there he is. Dwayne, you're right there. I can see you. Awesome, Dwayne. Good job. Okay. I do have, you know what, going back, I just want to, great to see you, Dwayne. One more, just a note as a mayor, it's not always fun, but we do have the flag at half-mast, and I want to just remind everybody why that is. The flag is still at half-mast, and that is to recognize the 215 children's remains that were discovered at the Campbell's residential school. And as many of you know, Tofino has, our communities have had their own residential schools, and those stories do emerge. And as, of course, as somebody who's worked in community health for many, many years up and down the coast, I've had the privilege of listening to the stories. And this story that I'm going to share with you was given to me very recently by a friend of mine here in town. And he's given to me the permission to share. Richard Martin, it's very quick, but Richard Martin said he was, when he first was taken to the residential school, he was very good at escaping. And he would escape, and said he was one of the lucky ones. His mother lived very close by at the Dolphin, where the Dolphin Motel is, and he would go there. And inevitably, they would find him and bring him back. And he said the last time that he escaped and they went back and captured him, they said that if he ever tried again, they would put his mother in prison. He was 5 years old, and he's about my age. So I just want to think about that, and just all of us take a moment to consider, you know, we're in a very special place here in this room, a special place of decision making. I just want to take a moment to consider our positions and to raise our minds to elevate our thoughts of why we're here and how we can make our community a better place now and in the future. Thank you. And now let us turn back to public comments. Hopefully our Mr. Smallwood is available.
Thank you, Mayor Law. I'm going to turn his mic back on. Mr. Smallwood, can you speak for us?
Trying. Not working. It's the same problem, Mr. Smallwood. Can you raise your hand?
Sometimes the mic in the preferences needs to be changed depending on what device he's using.
In system preferences.
Yeah, in the Zoom preferences.
Oh, Zoom preferences. Okay. If we can take 30 seconds to try our best to help Mr. Smallwood, and then we're going to have to move on.
Mr. Smallwood, if you can see the microphone on your bottom left of your screen, there's a little arrow, which we call carrots in the tech world. Click that carrot and select a microphone that is not being selected right now. And that might be the solution to your problem. If not, we do accept written submissions to council, and I can provide that information to you as needed.
Certainly, and we do have Mr. Smallwood's letter as well. Okay, I think we're gonna move on to delegations, and we have a delegation from Samantha Hackett, Chair of the West Coast Multiplex Society, regarding West Coast Multiplex updates. And Samantha, you have 10 minutes, please, for your presentation. Nice to see you. Welcome here.
Okay, let's see it. Can you hear me and see me?
perfect. Sorry, just make sure I've got everything. Because I want to be able to see you all still too. Okay, perfect. Thanks so much. And first off, wanted to acknowledge the territories of the communities that we work with, our Heshquiaht First Nations, Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations, Tla-o-qui-aht Nation, Tla-o-qui-aht, in the spirit of truth, healing, and reconciliation. And thank you so much, Mayor Law, for your comments. It was nice to take a moment. And thanks so much for all the volunteer recognitions. It's great timing because I am the chair of the West Coast Multiplex Society, which is representing a group of dedicated West Coast locals that are all volunteers, and for 20 years, over 2 decades, have given so much of their blood, sweat, and tears bringing this multiplex to reality. So it's a great tie-in with your volunteer recognition, so thank you. And thank you so much for the opportunity to update you all. Sorry to some of you who probably will hear a lot of this repetitive information, especially Councillor Steer, who just heard a similar presentation last week with the West Coast Committee. But I haven't had the chance, and the Multiplex Society hasn't had the chance to update officially for a couple of years now. So there's been a few elections, which definitely recreation and community space have been an important topic. So I wanted to say, first off as well, thank you to all of you for prioritizing health, mental wellness, and social well-being for Tofino and for all of our surrounding communities. The West Coast communities, under the persistence and dedication of the West Coast Multiplex Society, in consultation with local governments, First Nations, and the ACRD, have been in pursuit of this shared recreation facility for the West Coast. And this represents an exciting and unique MOU between 5 First Nations and 3 non-First Nations communities. Just to list all 8 of them, it's Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations, Ahousaht First Nation, Heshquiaht First Nation, Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, District of Tofino, District of Tla-o-qui-aht, and the ACRD. The Society has and continues to work hard to ensure that this facility will incorporate the needs of all of us and our children. While the project remains to be built, from the feasibility study and business plan, we know that the development of a multiplex facility is only feasible with all of our 8 communities working together. It specifically would add significantly to the overall health and wellness of all the residents in the area. Prior to our successful referendum, the project was planned for a phased approach, with a smaller initial investment followed by subsequent phases addressing a pool and potential other phases. Upon completion of geotechnical studies, the ACRD has confirmed the location for the proposed multiplex facility on ACRD property along Airport Road on the right-hand side. Over the last 4 years since all of that, the Society has been working very closely with Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations to secure assistance for the revised business plan and capital cost estimates. Tla-o-qui-aht specifically was instrumental in acquiring $100,000 from Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada, which we then completed the updated business plan and estimates for capital and operating costs for the arena portion of the multiplex project. The business plan identified an option for TFN to manage the facility, which would be a great economic training and employment opportunity for them specifically. And then they continue to be instrumental in helping to secure the capital funding for phase 1. They've applied on behalf of all of our 8 communities for the Canada-British Columbia Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. That was the grant applied for in 2019 and then again last year in 2020. I'm sure all of you do know this, but I just love to reiterate specifically phase 1 for the multiplex, the full-size arena, all of the amazing things that it can accommodate. So multiple sports and other recreation activities, so important right now, and over the next little while will be celebrations, gatherings, events, including family and community events, festivals, all arts and culture, public art space for carvings, and a high ground emergency shelter, and just overall diversifying our economy. The building will be designed and built to allow for the addition of the future swimming pool and potential other amenities and phases. Our recent education campaign, which hopefully you've seen around town, has been focused on the education of why an arena first. That's been the heading of the education going out through the community. And as this approach is necessary for the project to be successful, it's very important that everybody understands all the work that the society has been doing in this area. We're fully committed to building an arena and a pool, and firmly believe that the phased approach with the arena coming first presents the best chance to bring both incredible amenities to our communities. And the many reasons include saving on initial construction costs, significant ongoing energy cost savings, the multi-use revenue streams, which will also reduce the operating costs. It's more environmentally friendly, and overall just more uses to all 8 communities. We do believe that if we work together, that this much needed facility can become a reality for all currently living on the West Coast and for all future generations. Once built, we have the referendum in place that covers the operating deficit of up to currently $760,000 per year. And based on the business plan for phase 1, the deficit would be $350,000. However, the business plan was very conservative, not taking into account sponsorships, advertising, event revenue, and grants. The society specifically has been exploring multiple opportunities for funding opportunities, but we have a continued continued conversation with the BC Lottery Corporation. They've confirmed that they're interested in supplementing operating costs of up to $200,000 per year if all 8 communities are working together for this project. We've received direction from the West Coast Committee in 2018 for the society to explore the capital fundraising opportunities, and from the ACRD for the capital fundraising grant, a resolution and letter of support recognizing the importance of expanding recreation opportunities for the communities of the West Coast was provided. So the land is in place, the planning has been completed, we are in a position to improve opportunities for all of us in the region. And while the grant sits with the provincial government right now, we continue to focus on community outreach to get as much of the correct project information out to the public. We had a really positive response with the Why an Arena First document. I think there's still some radio ads around, and it's on our website. But throughout the 8 communities, we are looking to also do a second educational document, should be ready next week, and it's going to be outlining the phase 1 arena impact on the West Coast property taxes specifically. So concurrently, we've also been working on, and we've opened an endowment fund with the Tla-o-qui-aht Biosphere Trust for capital fundraising. We're finalizing a document for outreach to more private funders. And just last week, we started filming for a video to support our capital fundraising as well. Thank you again so much for taking this time, and for the District of Tofino for continuing to recognize the enormous contribution to health, mental wellness, social well-being, and many other benefits this phased approach to an eventual multifaceted facility will bring to the West Coast. Please let me know if there's anything from us, the society, if we can do anything to support. Recently in December, we were so happy to support and volunteer for the Skate Lot Synthetic Ice Initiative, and really appreciate Mayor, Council, and staff's creativity with the project. We loved seeing all the excitement throughout the community around it. It was a lot of fun. We look forward to your assistance in promoting this regional project at every opportunity, as it is a unique collaboration of all 8 communities for a single West Coast goal, and carries substantial weight for the future of everyone in this region. By an inclusive approach to our collective needs, we will create a better region for ourselves and our children. Thanks so much, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you so much. The Why a Rink First campaign was very compelling. So thank you for that. Do we have questions for Samantha? Questions? Yes, Councillor Chalmers.
Hi, thank you, Samantha. That was a great report and a great update. I really appreciate it, and all the work that's gone into it. You were saying you applied for grants recently. Is the next stage is really hinging on the next, if you receive a grant or not, with all the work that's been happening?
I would yes and no. definitely working with government to get a grant is definitely how this project is going to proceed, as well as our private funders, which, like I said, we've had those conversations and are continuing those opportunities. There is the current grant that we have sitting with the provincial government that we should hear either end of the summer or into the fall, is one option. But as we saw already, they renewed it and actually had suggested that we apply again and had given us specific details of what to change on our application to reapply. So there's always that option, although we hope that that won't be the case this year. But as well, there is always other funding opportunities. There's a federal government opportunity that we're exploring in conjunction as well, and hope to have some updates on that soon.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Samantha? Yes, Councillor Steer.
More just to thank Samantha, and I had the privilege of having conversations, and also she took care of most of the update that I was going to give for my ACRD update on the multiplex. So thank you very much for taking the burden off of me. And that I just want to point out a couple of things that that I think it came out clearly, but that the Multiplex Society has committed to 100% of the capital funding for this project through a variety of sources, as you pointed out. And then the other was the successful referendum in 2012 that looked at the potential operating deficits and the amounts that might be contributed. And I'll bring up some of that more at the ACRD update in terms of how that formula works, and that the discussions that we'd had about between the assessment values and the population and how that worked well. And I did want to point out, and I did hear you say that the amount of work that the multiplex has been putting into looking at ways of reducing those potential operating deficits through that the gaming grants and stuff. So I just wanted to thank you for the tremendous amount of work that I know that you put in the last several years, and look forward to hearing more.
Councillor Challenger. Thank you, Councillor Steer.
Thanks, Samantha, for the report. Great to hear a little bit more about this. I was wondering what the best way for what you would ask from council to support you best, and then for any community members who may be listening or wondering how to support this going forward, what you would ask.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and great opportunity. I don't like to do too much of the plugging as far as our website and email address, but our website is westcoastmultiplex.org, which all this information is on, and our contact information, but directly is info@westcoastmultiplex.org, which we would love to hear from anybody with any questions, comments, or if they're interested in getting involved. We also have our Facebook page, Instagram page, so lots of ways to get a hold of us. And then as far as council specifically, there isn't a specific ask or any specific way, which is why this was sort of more of an update, but it was more sort of just a timely opportunity to make sure that everybody had the current information, and just if there was anything that that anyone had question wise. I think it's just the opportunity that when you are talking, whether it's with government or with residents, is just having the multiplex as a topic of conversation, because we're doing the education campaign. It's starting to happen already. And I know that other communities already are talking to different government levels of trying to get this project started. It's hard when it's 8 communities. Everybody's prioritizing it obviously differently, but a lot of the 8 communities are talking to higher levels of government to support the project, and so making sure that that we all have that current information is just helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions for Samantha? No? I think it's probably a good time for council to put a little more effort into this, and so I would actually would like to bring this up to the next committee of the whole for a topic of discussion, and to perhaps find a way that we can move forward to do a little more support for this this project. That would be my recommendation. And yeah, how do we go about that? How would that do I? Thank you for your thank you first, Samantha, for your presentation. I do appreciate it and all your hard work. It's been a long time in the books, and you have shown the whole Multiplex Society has shown tremendous patience, perseverance going forward. I appreciate it. Ms. Best.
Thank you, Mayor Law. I've noted this presentation for a future committee of the whole meeting, and I'll connect with Mrs. Hackett on scheduling that. And I just would like to let you know that Adam Smallwood is back with a new microphone and speaker setup and requested to ask submit a comment again. So if council would like to allow that.
I would, I'm just looking for council for yes, and we'll make that a motion by unanimous consent. Great. Thanks again, Samantha. Mr. Smallwood.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, great. That's fantastic. I live at 627 Newwood Road. I hope you were able to read my letter and watch some of the videos I've sent, especially the one taken last night. I'm speaking to express my experience with backyard chicken farming. I want to stress that my neighbor's coop is about 3 to 4 times the size of a normal backyard coop that is typically allowed in other municipalities, usually under 6 hens, no roosters. And with this, I'm currently experiencing 3 to 4 times the impact of living next to a coop. Like I mentioned in my letter, the coop is 10 meters from my home. The rooster that's being used for breeding purposes brings everything to another level. Any peace that I enjoy on my property is often broken by the shrill of the rooster and all the birds involved. I'm also concerned about predator activity in the area, such as cougar, bear, and wolves. With that aside, chicken coops are notorious for flies. The infestations I experience inside and around my home are intense, disgusting, and have psychological impacts as they represent living in unhygienic conditions. I have documented these in the recent videos that I've shared. With this, the potential spread of dysentery, salmonella, influenza, and other zoonotic diseases. This has been going on for years, and for this reason alone, I am asking for immediate action on my case. I implore you to please take this issue seriously, as it is ruining my health, of my family, and my home. I think this is an example of how things can potentially get out of hand, and that Tofino needs to create and enforce strict rules and regulations regarding backyard chicken farming. Thank you for your time.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was turning off my timer.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Smallwood, for your comments. And we are moving on now to correspondence. We have correspondence 7.1. Brad Dusseault, letter regarding parking on 4th and Campbell Street. I believe this there is a comment by our Chief Baker, Manager of Protective Services. Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I didn't necessarily have a comment on this. The letter wasn't addressed to myself, but that's okay.
My apologies. Actually, my notes were for the next letter.
That's okay. I am familiar that it's an ongoing issue, and that the Director of Engineering and Public Works definitely has a plan and has been in communication with Mr. Dusseault, and that we are working towards a long-term plan that may provide a solution. There's nothing short-term, that's for sure, but that's really about all I can comment on it at the moment.
Yeah, apologies for dragging you in there. Anybody else, any other councillors have a comment on this letter? I believe somebody requested this be on the agenda. So Councillor Thick, Councillor Challenger, and just keep in mind the time.
Yeah, thank you. I thought that the letter was, it explained the situation, and I've also been party to many discussions about this corner and the, the ongoing problems that seem to be there. And I drive by it probably once or twice a day, so I understand the nature of that. And I think that what the letter writer is asking is a reasonable request. And I just wondered if that the request to remove those either remove the 2 parking spots or to only allow deliveries to occur up until 4 p.m. each day. Is that under consideration by our staff? And that's what I'd like to know. Thanks.
And there's, I know that our Mr. Work has been working on this, and Mr. McPherson, I know I've actually have quite an intimate knowledge of this as well. So I think that Mr. McPherson, you want to make a comment? I think we should stay away from specifics. I know there are plans, as our Chief Baker has said, and I think those are pretty good plans. They just have to roll out and move forward. But go ahead, Mr. McPherson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the staff are aware of the concern and the solution that Councillor Thick has spoken of, and everything is under consideration. I think what we're trying to do with respect to this is have a comprehensive plan for our downtown for parking and for loading, rather than trying to solve problems or perceived problems in isolation of each other. So in an isolation, pardon me, of other issues. Trying not to make the mistake of pulling one string and causing 3 more to come loose. So we're aware of the concern. I've spoken with Mr. Dusseault, as he notes in his letter. Mr. Work has spoken with Mr. Dusseault multiple times, as noted in the letter. And we're working on a lot of things presently, and we want to give parking some more attention. It's not going to be something that's immediate, though.
Sorry, Councillor Challenger, do you have something to comment on here?
My comments were very similar to Councillor Thick, so I don't need to spend more time on it. I just thought it was reasonable, and yeah. So, and thanks, Mr. McPherson, for your comment.
Okay. I think we'll probably hear more from Mr. Work as time goes on the whole parking enforcement issue and parking plans downtown. And I'm sure this will be covered in there. 7.2, letter from Adam Smallwood regarding Backyard Chicken Coop Regulations. And I believe we do have a comment here from Chief Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can definitely appreciate the letter from Mr. Smallwood, as well as his comments just a few moments ago. It's something that we have been working on for a little while and very familiar with the situation. We actually have another follow-up meeting over at the property on Friday. What you see in the video and what you read in the letter is very much what seems to be happening at that location. And definitely there are some areas of our animal control bylaw that cover these scenarios already. Our animal control bylaw does outline chickens and fowl as considered as an animal, and that bylaw also talks about anybody that is keeping an animal is required to follow the noise regulations and not disturb the peace, the quiet, the rest, enjoyment, and the comfort of the neighborhood or persons adjacent to it. And every person keeping an animal must keep an animal in a clean and sanitary environment and not create foul odors to create a nuisance or disturb the enjoyment of the neighborhood or property in the vicinity. And then I think it should be noted as well that in the last couple of weeks, since this letter has been written, we have received about 5 or 6 more complaints regarding chickens in various areas of Tofino in general. So it's not just specific to this neighborhood. And some of the concerns that we're hearing from people is that the sounds from roosters are affecting their sleep. Long periods of sleep deprivation are affecting their overall mental health. Health and wellness related to the smell, excessive flies, feces affecting families and individuals' businesses, and chickens running at large in other people's yards, and on the roads, and possibly causing safety issues. But one of the largest concerns that I do have as well too is just the animal attractant issue, and Mr. Smallwood did identify that as well. WildSafe BC has made recommendations a year ago that we work on a regional urban chicken regulations, and council received a document in 2019 from BearSmart about a human wildlife conflict management document specific for District of Tofino, and they also recommended regulations limiting numbers of chickens, not permitting roosters and those sorts of things. So I definitely see that there's some things that we could focus on, and I do feel that I understand the concerns that Mr. Smallwood has, and we are working to address those as quickly as possible, but it will take some time as well.
Thank you. Councillor Thick, Councillor McMaster, again, noting the time in our correspondence.
Yeah, thank you. And I do appreciate the letter, and I appreciate the calm tone of the speaker. And I just think that with, I read the bylaw, and noting that it is 20 years old, we really need to address this. I think the fact that 5 or 6 letters have come in since the initial letter was written by Mr. Smallwood indicates that we have something that needs updating urgently. And I think that I don't know how we can move this along so that this 20-year-old bylaw could be updated, Mayor Law, but I would certainly like to see that happen. Thank you.
Councillor McMaster.
Yeah, I appreciate Chief Baker's comments, but I also think it's not just an animal control issue, it's a zoning issue. I think I was on council when we first started talking about chickens. I think we all know Tofino's changed in the 12 years since then. And I personally believe that we're at the stage where chickens or size of coops should be monitored in residential areas. And I think we should be looking at the zoning. And I'd like to see what Mr. Rogers might have to say about that if he's on the line.
Yeah, happy to address that concern. In our current zoning bylaw, there is a provision for urban agriculture within the home occupation section of the bylaw, but no specific uses permitted in this bylaw, which like the business license bylaw is going on this one is going on 25 years old. It was our intent again this year to rewrite that bylaw from scratch, and this concern about chickens and urban agriculture was identified in the 2021 OCP and will form part of those changes. That project is somewhat on hold until the fall, until we have a senior planner in place. So definitely hear the concerns from council and the community, and look forward to addressing it later this year.
Any other comments? Mr. McPherson.
Just if I may, with respect to Councillor McMaster's question a little bit further, I think that probably the approach on this ought to be, if council so wishes, looking at both our animal control bylaw, is it adequate, as well as zoning. Remembering that there is what's commonly referred to as grandfathering or lawful non-conforming use, if we were to use our zoning bylaw solely for trying to regulate things like this. So if someone already does have that kind of a use in place that isn't regulated or is under-regulated, they would have the opportunity to continue that use. So we can have, I think that Chief Baker has identified that what Mr. Smallwood has spoken of is something that we can begin to ramp up a little bit of enforcement. But maybe in the medium term, we can look at our animal control bylaw, and then on top of that, in the longer term, as Mr. Rogers has identified, as we're rewriting our zoning bylaw over time, we can make sure that we get that in alignment kind of modern practices, I guess.
Any other comments? I do have a comment. I mean, full disclosure, I have chickens and they do run free at times in my yard and do go into my neighbor's yard at the often time when I'm training them not to, and they have been known to go on the road. So, but they're learning. But I do want to point out that, you know, times have changed, but there's a lot of interest in urban agriculture. There's a lot of interest in chickens, and some of it is actually very good. So, and so I just want to point out that having chickens is not necessarily bad. It's the way they are. And I also want to point out that you know, some of these things I think are about being good neighbors. And I think you know, we get some complaints. I think it would behoove us to try to find ways to remedy them. Remedy those complaints, get people to actually work together as a first choice, and also gather more information. We've had one letter that we read and the suggestion of some other letters. So I think part of this, a good way forward would be to get a better understanding of the fullness of the issues. So I think that would be a good option going forward, is to ask Chief Baker to come back with some more full information going forward, and then of course work on the zoning, as Mr. Rogers said, and bylaws from there. So I think that's all actually going to happen. I think everybody already sort of mentioned that. Any other comments? We don't. I believe we don't need anything, any motions going forward for this. No. Okay, moving on. 7.3, Minister of Municipal Affairs regarding BC Restart Plan. I believe everybody's quite aware of the Restart Plan. June 15th, July 1st are the next big dates, and of course September 1st. Pacific Rim National Park Reserve regarding the Broken Islands group reopening to visitors. Comments on that? It's good to see things slowly opening up with the Restart Plan as vaccinations roll out. Very good. District of Saanich regarding the British Columbia Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program, CARIP. That, of course, I believe was a plug for replacing the CARIP with equal funding. Certainly benefits larger communities. 7.6, City of Prince George regarding 2021 UBC resolutions. Any comments on that? Seeing none, move on. Presentations and reports. We have 8.1, Council Grant Policy Amendment. And we have a report from Financial Services, possibly.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for you today. This report is coming forward in follow-up to the discussion that occurred at the Committee of the Whole meeting in April, where the 2021 Council grant amounts were awarded to applicants, and staff didn't receive specific direction to make any larger changes to this policy, but this proposed change, which is regarding the maximum grant amount to be awarded to organizations, is being brought forward in anticipation of the 2022 call for a grant application. So both myself and the financial officer are available this evening to answer any questions that you may have about this report.
Are there any questions about this report? I think it's fairly straightforward. Essentially removing, stating it's a $2,500 cap. That's correct.
So it's not stating the dollar value, but just stating that the maximum grant amount will be equivalent to 10% of the annual council grant budget.
Any questions? Councillor Thick.
Not really a question, but thank you. The reason, as I recall, just a little bit of history as I recall, and maybe Councillor McMaster can correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, one of the reasons that was actually put in place was because different groups were advocating for a higher amount, and sometimes it seemed unfair, I think, to us as counselors that we would then lean towards those people that put the higher request there. So it was done for a good reason. So I'm not sure how to go forward with this one, but I certainly, I remember why it was in place, and I think it was a good reason. So yeah, maybe Councillor McMaster or Councillor Anderson can recall a little bit more of that, or if that's pertinent to the conversation right now, I don't know. Thank you.
Sorry, I was looking at the actual the thing here. I missed if people had hands up. Councillor McMaster?
I don't think it's really pertinent to the conversation we're having at the moment, so I'm quite happy with the recommendation.
Councillor Chalmers?
I'm happy to move the recommendation that the amendment of District of Tofino Council Grant Policy as shown in Appendix 1 to the report dated June 8th, 2021 be approved.
Seconded by Councillor Challenger. Any further comments? All in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. We have 8.2 Committee of Whole. If there are no objections to adopting the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held May 31st, 2021, or sorry, actually be received. My apologies. Let's do if there are no objections to receiving the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held May 31st, 2021, I will move reception. Seeing none, minutes are received. And we also have moved that the presentation of details regarding the Tofino Pavilion be referred to staff to draft a report to be returned to council. Seconded by Councillor Chalmers. Any further comments? And seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Moving on to bylaws. We have a District of Tofino Housing Agreement Bylaw number 1289/2020 for adoption. Do we have any discussions with this, or can we move right to a recommendation? Seeing no appetite for discussion, go ahead, Councillor Chalmers.
I'll move, sorry, I lost my spot. The District of Tofino Housing Agreement Bylaw number 1289/2020 be adopted.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any further comments? All in favor? And that motion is carried. We have a, moving on to business initiated by council members. We have 10.1 committee and external appointment verbal reports from council members. This is a standing item. Councillor McMaster, Vancouver Island Regional Library Trustees Meeting Update. Very exciting.
Not too much. I attended the executive meeting first at the Vancouver Regional Library, and that was followed about a week or so later by the trustees meeting. But a letter recommending the site on Main Street has been received. There was little discussion. I expect that VRL staff will be getting in touch with us as soon as a new director is appointed. And the rest of the meeting was spent in camera, which I can't talk about at the moment.
That's all. Thank you very much, Councillor McMaster. Excellent. 10.2, we have a notice of motion from Mayor Law regarding residential campground guidelines and recommendations. And I brought this notice of motion forward to, in discussion with staff, to forearm council with any information that we may need about campground, residential or long-term campground regulations, zonings, guidelines, etc., etc. It is my hope that that information that comes back from staff will give us a broader understanding of what we need to use to discuss any applications or zoning applications or anybody that comes forward from the community with proposals for a long-term campground. Any questions? Seeing none. We have a recommendation. Councillor Anderson.
I guess you've left it deliberately fairly broad. I'm hoping that this has some sort of tie to employee housing sort of. I believe that transient nature of both this type of accommodation and our workforce in Tofino is the most difficult to serve in terms of putting them up for the summer. So I'm just wondering if you have any comment, or if staff has any comment on whether or not this would be sort of tied to employee accommodation.
Excellent question.
If I may, from staff's perspective, it seems apparent in the description that it's a residential campground. So that would be in our minds that it's a campground meant for people living here and working here. I don't think we'd anticipate it being a residential campground for people looking to have a camper for a second home. So that's the basis on which I think we're proceeding. If council wants to add some additional wording to the resolution, that's certainly the prerogative of council to make it clear that it's for employee housing.
That sufficient answer there for you, Councillor Anderson? Certainly was my my intent, and as you noted, the resolution is rather broad, and that is to give us as much peripheral information as we can get to get a very broad overview of what if they can fit into Tofino, where it can fit, what it's going to look like, all the way down to density, fire access, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very broad on purpose so that we can get as much information in many different areas and sectors as we can. Any further questions? Councillor Thick.
Yeah, just a question for staff. Thank you, Mayor Law. And I do support it. I just wondered, with our reduced capacity at the moment, what sort of, if this were to go forward, what sort of time frame might we be considering for a report in this regard? Thanks.
I wish I could answer that. Yeah, with reduced capacity, it's it's challenging with the things that we have on our plate right now. Mm-hmm. It may be that we need to find some external resources to help with this, and if that's the case, and if it's beyond what we think is kind of a reasonable spend, then we will be coming back to council. But I know that Mr. Rogers has done research into this area already, and given that we have seen applications over the last 5 or so years from a number of individuals looking to establish these. We've looked at best practices, we looked at fire code and those kinds of concerns. So I think that some of that is kind of sitting in our drawer already. There may be some other information that we need to get gathered and may need some help doing that, and then encapsulating in a report for council to consider either in this format or committee of the whole. So Mr. Rogers, I see, has appeared. I don't know if there's anything further.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rogers. I think he has a comment.
I have no further comment. I think Mr. McPherson encapsulated my thoughts.
Super. Does that suffice for council? Excellent. All right, since it's unless somebody would like to move this specifically, I can move it, but go ahead if anybody wants the chance. I will carry on. I move that staff be directed to return to council with recommendations and guidelines for potential residential campgrounds within the District of Tofino. Seconded by Councillor Challenger. Any further comments? All in favor? And seeing none opposed, motion's carried. Unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? Nothing is on my agenda. Okay, we have 12. We have question period. Miss Best, do we have anybody signed up for questions?
Thank you, Mayor Law. I will call once, I will call twice, and I will call thrice. And we have no questions for the period.
Excellent. Moving on to closed session. Would anybody like to, somebody recommend we move into closed session? Councilor Challenger, go ahead.
I'll move the recommendation that the meeting be closed to the